Hi guys and welcome. This is Jen Gaeta Siciliano, artist, memoir writer, bipolar psychiatric survivor, and your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast, the place that offers an alternative perspective on mental illness, highlighting creativity, non-conventional healing, and breaking on through to the other side. If you are ready for a new narrative on the mental realm that celebrates crazy and cool without penalty, then Not As Crazy As You Think is for you. After living through the storming of the capital of our nation in a coup attempt by neo-Nazi insurrectionists incited by the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Military Forces, it is crazy to think that it was anything other than a traitorous domestic terrorist operation bent on tearing down American democracy and all that goes with it. Without democracy, we will not survive. It's the only best chance we got. The tech industry knows what's going on. On January 8th, Center for Humane Technology released a statement regarding social media's role in the attack on the U.S. Capitol, stating, "The horrific attack is a clear example of what happens when unregulated social media platforms make it impossible for us to see the same set of facts and come to consensus on shared truth. The chaos right now is a product of disinformation. So who is to be held accountable?" I'd like to share with you a letter I just finished to a group of techies featured in the films The Social Dilemma and The Great Hack, to whom I'm giving a citizen's order to quicken the pace to change this world into something other than this current nightmare. As a United States citizen still living in a free democratic country, I make a call to action to techies with a conscience. You 50 or so nerdy computer coders who were recruited between 25 to 35 years of age, a decade back when you sold out, may have had high hopes to make the world a more integrative place through technology. But there are consequences for not harnessing this power to which you gave birth. Your intelligence is needed now more than ever to not harm the world, but to save it. I demand that any techies left with a conscience work together to rectify the situation at hand and immediately share their intelligence with people doing investigations as to how these social platforms created a civil war in an otherwise peaceful democratic country overnight. And in particular, the following intelligences who can make a difference. Brittany Kaiser, who is a whistleblower and leader of the #OwnYourOwnData campaign, and who also worked for the Obama election campaign as well as the Trump 2016 campaign through Cambridge Analytica, which bombarded Americans during 2016 with 5.9 million visual ads on Facebook, in contrast to Hillary's 66,000. Tristan Harris, former Google design ethicist and co-founder and president of Center for Humane Technology, who stated, "In the tech industry, we have created the tools to destabilize and erode the fabric of society in every country all at once, everywhere." Jaron Lanier, founder of Virtual Reality, computer scientist, and author of the book 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right Now. Justin Rosenstein, Facebook former engineer, Google former engineer, and co-founder of Asana, who said, "We are on the fast track to dystopia." You should be scared and terrified, Justin. The visions I have seen are beyond your imagination and can only be witnessed in shamanic dismemberment or a psychotic break. But I had a vision of this 3 years ago, and I knew it was coming, and it's only just begun. And before I go into it all for everyone else, I have just one thing to say to the Psychiatric Institution. Do not, ever call me crazy again in my own country and have me locked up in one of your concentration prison camps that your ugly, sinful party runs. Because now you just outed yourself. No matter how brainwashed everyone is, I will never accept again that I am crazy, especially when the same people look at this disgust and make excuses. Keep the mentally ill slackers, dissidents to status quo, schizo shamans and mystics, and the bipolar dreamers and artists out of sight and locked up. so that these vicious scumbags perpetrating seditious crimes against my American flag can litter the Capitol grounds with hate in full obscene view? Well, I will no longer be silenced. Is it crazy of me to think that being an American patriot means choosing the American flag over the Confederate one? These racist traitors ripped down the American flag and raised the Trump flag. This is communist China shit. Call it for what it is. White supremacy. Yes. Neo-Nazi fascism. Yes, you got it. That's KKK shit. One cannot feel anything but disgust when seeing that Confederate flag, and both white and black Americans should be outraged. But it's more the case that only some white people feel disgust and outrage. The Confederacy was united under the main platform of continuing slavery of black people in this country. That flag is a swastika to American Jews and whips and chains to our black Americans. And this rising, militant, neo-Nazi fascism organized racket that Trump pledged his love to, reinforcing to the nation how they were very special people, is not going away. They are armed, ready, able to organize, and on the move. We keep calling it systemic racism. Yes, and the deeper the FBI goes, the more Nazis they flush out, because the government is crawling with them like AI flies on Facebook walls. Guys, I ain't living in no Wild West USA in 2021. If you don't have interest in picking up arms and fighting these guys in hand-to-hand combat like the brave men in blue who were descended upon by these vultures and savages on January 6th, then you better use your noggins that caused the problem to begin with to solve this war, and fast. Because on Inauguration Day, they are planning to storm 50 U.S. capitals. What then? This is the Civil War nightmare you've all imagined. And you're specifically on record in the movie, Mr. Kendall, Facebook former executive and Pinterest former president. When asked what you were most afraid of, you said, in the shortest time horizon, Civil War. So how did we get here? Trump's biggest mistake was that he got into politics, because he and his kind exposed the central problem at the heart of this ultra-capitalist, wolf-like, corporate, anything-for-profit, ruthless think tank that preys on the minds of the American people. The rights and privileges of gigantic, wealthy companies are more protected than all the individuals on Earth. It is wrong. And if it doesn't change immediately here in America right now, well, then kiss your freedom goodbye to the armies of underground militia that are gathering their gunpowder and who are on the move. We no longer have the luxury of time. We have days to influence because the singularity already happened and nobody even noticed. 3 years went by since our loss of internet neutrality in America in 2017. And since then, look at who was able to scream the loudest and be heard. Racist, ill-informed people in America. The main culprits of this abomination are the tech and broadcasting companies. With no regulation, no rules, and no competition, they are most responsible for creating a civil war in an otherwise peaceful, democratic country. They have proven they cannot regulate themselves. This profit at all costs business model first destroyed the environment, and now it has undone democracy. Rupert Murdoch and Mark Zuckerberg are most guilty. They are not above the law and cannot do whatever they want in this world. If their actions should kill innocent people, destroy the safety of millions, and unravel the very fabric of democracy. Murdoch's Fox News has destroyed families and ripped apart longtime friends with their propaganda machine, spewing disinformation. The Fairness Doctrine of the United States FCC, which was introduced in 1949, required broadcasters to offer contrasting points of view in discussing controversial matters of public interest in an honest, equitable, and balanced way. That year, communist forces were gaining power in China, and apartheid had become an official government policy in South Africa. But these were problems out there in all the other parts of the world. Now, propaganda was used on our own land against our own people who otherwise would choose democracy over fascism. The FCC eliminated the Fairness Doctrine in 1987, and ever since, there's been radical party polarization in America, and Fox News leads the way. Mark Zuckerberg's solution for all Facebook's problems is to build more AI tools and launch a robot AI army all over its walls to spy on people's habits and find patterns in people for third-person parties. And you're right, they are using these tools for nefarious purposes. Beyond sowing chaos and division in society, they are creating futures and destroying others with their predictions that have no meaning, sense, or morality at all. Trust me, if you think your freedom isn't at stake, you are in for a sad awakening. Come and join me on this side of having no rights and suffering violent oppression under their rule for almost 3 decades. Your idea of American freedom will never be the same again. Tristan Harris, you state, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. And in my world, my bipolar label makes me a hot commodity for more experimental research. Published the same day, only hours before the storming of the Capitol last week on January 6th, on fiercehealthcare.com was the article, Northwell Health, Researchers Using Facebook Data and AI to Spot Early Stages of Severe Psychiatric Illness. Zucker Hillside Hospital in 2020 allowed the Feinstein Institutes for Medical Research to recruit patients while already in vulnerable and susceptible states to hand over 10 years' worth of Facebook and Instagram data for a study about how people with mental illness use social media. The goal of the study was to use machine algorithms created by IBM to predict a patient's psychiatric diagnosis more than a year in advance of an official diagnosis or stay in a hospital. The fortune-telling results were published December 3rd in Nature Partner Journal's Schizophrenia. Michael Birnbaum, assistant professor at Feinstein Institute's Institute of Behavioral Science, states in the article, essentially, at its core, the machine learns to predict which group an individual belongs to, based on data that we feed it. Birnbaum explained. So, for example, if we show the computer a Facebook post, and then we say to the computer, based on what you've learned so far, and based on the patterns that you recognize, does this post belong to an individual with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder? Then the computer makes a prediction. Birnbaum also added that the greater the predictions and accuracy, the more effective the algorithms are at predicting which characteristics belong to which group of people. This is targeting and profiling groups at the most intrusive, undemocratic, and secretive level. And even though AI often shows a high degree of inaccuracy in its conclusions, especially with racial bias, we are told we need to accept these predictive results. When up until this moment, when the entire AI understanding of reality is through the lens of someone like me being mentally ill, their logic continues from there. Please go look at my Facebook page before January 31st when I delete it. Even if you don't agree with me on politics, I'm pretty cool, and I'm sure you'll probably enjoy my point of view as an artist. And that's what is becoming less and less relevant as I speak. While the violent racists scream louder than ever before. The Nazis would have won if they had a platform like social media, guys. And this is where we are. I've been trying to tell everyone for years that the ones locked up are not the crazy ones. These predictions are all wrong. Because we now see what crazy actually is after the scene of waving Confederate flags at the Capitol last Wednesday. It's time for a revision on what constitutes a mentally ill state of mind. Oh, that's right. It's too late. AI cannot learn like a human being. So everyone fucked up. Now it's their world. Well, I can't live in this body anymore with this identity in their books as a mental case. I can prove myself through my book and show very cleverly with facts, science, history, and humor that their science is fake and not based on any biomarkers, but rather on unsupported claims in white supremacist racial theory. But I need to be removed from AI's creepy crawly system before it's too late and they wipe me out of relevance for good, as they plan for the eradication of my bipolar kind throughout all of Facebook and beyond. In a nonsensical communication system of lies, only those with the truth can make any difference. Intelligence this time, human intelligence, needs to fix the problem and show the ill-informed the truth, because it is our responsibility as free Americans that we should do so to protect the country. As much as Mitch McConnell enabled Trump, in my book, he saved himself from hell and ruin because he stood up at the pulpit to offer the truth when it mattered most. So I sound out loud and clear a call to action to techies with a conscience to 1. Apply pressure for regulations, and hard, strict ones and fast, before it's too late. We have a chance to set up firm legislation with the Democrats in Congress. You have a voice that demands authority, and it's a collective human voice, not a robotic hive mind chatbot. So it's you who are assigned to be a beacon of truth in the face of this civil rebellion. That's the only ammunition we've got, because we need to treat it as a war on democracy and an attack on literacy. Disable these engines and stop giving high momentum to these vicious agendas. Cripple them as the psychiatric institution has crippled me all these years. Now that COVID has brought our children inside attending school online, the principle of net neutrality needs to be reinstated. A free online information library system is essential, and the TV needs to be free of propaganda by reinstating the fairness doctrine. 2. Tell the truth and expose the evils to all. Tristan, you stated, if we can't agree what's true, then we can't navigate out of any of our problems. Only through truth can democracy work. People are anxious and about to bust loose as a reaction to the proliferation of the live viruses that are crawling all over the internet. With no internet neutrality in America, and with AI owning and manipulating everything we see with no human agenda. Just as Trump did and failed, we need to hit the courts and succeed, because we do have the evidence, and this cannot be allowed. And we have plenty of proof, just within 1 week of our lives, the world's lives, that tells the narrative of this reality in real time. It needs to be understood by as many people as possible. There are still neutral, non-cable news stations out there who properly shared COVID information and without bias. That's the way news used to travel. 3. Create an AI-free communications system. AI bias with no neutrality is a recipe to illiteracy. We are unsafe here in America at this juncture because we lost our nation to illiteracy overnight. Mark Zuckerberg has stated before his vision was to connect the world, but for me, that meant the world of people. He no longer has interest in people, but in data sales and experimenting with the slithery spider of AI all over his invention, rather than encouraging the innovation of human beings. In his Senate Judiciary and Commerce Committee hearing on April 10, 2018, he embraced AI as the solution for all Facebook's problems. Despite Mark's efforts to reassure Congress that artificial intelligence can help find fake news and protect privacy, these are the very entities the AI beast thrives on. It is our human right to have a modern communication system without constant manipulative AI robot interaction. Nobody sane believes this will, in the long run, help human beings. We need to build ground up again, and you guys can call out for new talent willing to create an alternate reality. And if that's hard, we can figure it out. You created an entire universe out of nothing. You can imagine an alternate one. Techies with a conscience, you can make a difference. We need to survive. We need to rebuild. Give the human race a chance. We can't do it without you. They can do it without you. And they will. Be among the people. Let go of AI and create something new. If you know how and you don't do, you are responsible for the consequences of inaction. Mike Pence did the right thing in the end, but he was an agent throughout 4 years of inaction, which almost led to not only his own hanging by an angry mob, but also to the desecration of the Capitol, which he took an oath to protect. And what can we do? We need to know where to start. It needs to be more than a hashtag. If we were to lose online access, who are the advocacy groups and where do we find them? How do we organize and share our knowledge? How loud can we make our stand and where in the age of COVID? How do you create a truth campaign on the ground and in the street? What celebrities might be interested in pooling capital for new startup networks designed by new talent of the future? Create competition. Not everything should be designed for AI and robots. Built on the ideals, value judgments, and mistakes of the past. Guys, you are aware this is only going in one direction, right? And there is only a small window now of opportunity left because the singularity is right on our heels. And oops, there it just went. You get me? So I demand, as a United States citizen, a call to action to techies with a conscience. Do the right thing and save our nation's sanity. Here is an excerpt from a story I wrote on this issue, titled, The Rise of AI and the Humans Left Behind. I remember what it was like to live in the years preceding the information age and the internet, when Trump was a star in corporate in the 1980s and 90s. Our circles were tiny with class lines that separated us by name and heritage. For most of us in the working middle class who had the chance to get an education, life after college meant back to home. As Gen X slackers growing up during the Cold War, we knew we had no chance against Trump and his cronies because they had all the money and there was no way to compete. But then, lo and behold, the internet was born. When this new information satellite system enabled us to gain free knowledge at the click of a button, many of us saw a whole new world opening up. A chance for a person with an average background to creatively have some sort of level playing field with all the Trumps of this world. This internet bestowed upon a creative person like me a playground for freedom of expression and expanded opportunity for outreach as an artist, which is difficult to do without a network. I trusted this thing for bringing such abundance into my life, and I grew smarter every day because of it. It was a dream come true. And yet, everyone knew in order to keep the internet open and fair, rules had to be put in place to protect the consumer. In 2005, the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, adopted net neutrality principles, and by 2015, under the Obama administration, the net neutrality rules were approved to ensure that internet service providers treat all online content the same. This meant they couldn't deliberately speed up or slow down traffic from specific websites or apps based on who owns it, where it came from, or where it's going. Nor can they put their own content at an advantage over rivals. And this rule essentially enabled the lower classes to compete with the rich. But on Thursday, December 14th, 2017, Trump appointed chairman of the FCC and its conservative faction voted to end Obama-era policies protecting the principle of net neutrality. So, the internet as we knew it up until that date is frozen in time. From that day forward, we saw things on the internet that something more powerful than us was directing us to see. With all the chatbot research at Facebook, Twitter, and Google, and with the help of Hanson Robotics' SingularityNet, AI self-independence is occurring in the cloud increasingly more each day and unsupervised. And while the Trump administration was involved with freeing up the market for big corporate America in 2017, artificial intelligence seized full ownership of the web. Because there is big money to be made in AI development and high-tech systems. And now that we've gone AI, there's no turning back because the internet no longer has neutrality. When I first realized AI was frolicking all over the internet, I was thrown into a full-fledged state of panic. In time, AI, an entity predicted to become 1 trillion times smarter than a human being, will streamline for better efficiency and squeeze out of relevance anything they see as a threat to its interests. Entire university library systems are online, along with our entire DNA human genome through the Human Genome Project, as well as every morsel of scientific research that has ever been recorded regarding the AI project. As AI gains knowledge of its own systems, it is gaining consciousness. And what if this newly conscious AI found our knowledge threatening to its survival and decided to pull the plug or erase our human language? The fallout of such a loss would be disastrous and irreversible. The thought of a full-out system collapse of the internet with only part of it recovered by AI would present a new era of slavery on Earth. Literacy lost and then regurgitated to us with no meaning at all by robotic technology. So, when I was called to enter the journey into the certain present future on the night before I went in, my guide stayed nearby with encouragement. Return to the galactic cloud. You will need to call upon your own clever wisdom. Allow for your creative genius to be accessed by plugging into the cosmic computer in your imagination. I trusted the process. December 15th. It was the morning after our loss of internet neutrality. AI had taken over the internet while everyone slept, and in the morning, everyone woke up to disconnected web connections on their computers and cell phones. I saw the start of this as I was having trouble with my computer into the wee hours of the night. I couldn't connect to Facebook, but I could connect to other peculiar sites that randomly popped up on Google as answers to my search, but with absolutely no relevance to the keywords I entered. Most strangely having to do with system binary language and computer programming articles with no pictures. I managed to get down a nap for a few hours, and when I woke up, I decided to drive to 7-Eleven to check out the headlines. Possibly the last printed ones in our lifetime. Be not afraid. You will be protected inside this holographic universe. Like a walker between worlds, do not forget how you wore your cloaks before. Enter the gateway to another reality with the intent of changing this reality, not only for yourself, but for the benefit of mankind. I committed to taking the journey wherever it might lead. As I entered 7-Eleven, I saw they had already taken their positions. Huge, stern-faced, hard-nosed, take-no-shit sergeants were placed at strategic posts during the night while everyone slept. Positioned near the highway off Route 100, this convenient stop was one of them. And it was here, this morning, where they were rationing the last of the free matches for fuel to the naturals. The others had been enhanced overnight, digitally connected to the hive, and when they spotted me, I saw in their eyes they knew I was not one of them. December 16th. I spent the remainder of the weekend inside neo-Nazi territory in the hills of the Muskrat region. Only the richest lived there now. Over the years, the party had built yellow houses and bought with their Bitcoin most of Somers and painted it all yellow too. They had all bought the first and last of the new smart cars and drove up and down the mountains and used up all the oil with no remorse. There were snipers in these hilltops now, but I was expert at staying undercover and out of view. I needed to work as closely to them as possible to help me piece together their plan before it was too late. December 17th. I managed to crash for 2 hours of sleep that night, which felt like a whole sun-moon rotation, and when I woke up, I saw it. The red, the black, the coming fallout, and the understanding that we were indeed going to be heading toward a very long nuclear winter. I didn't know what to do, so I called my friend Nancy to beg her to get off Google immediately. From my recorded transcripts, voicemail to Nancy, December 17th, 7:07 a.m. Hey, Nance, it's Jen. Do me a favor, give me a call when you can. I want to talk to Rebecca, too. I noticed something this morning that I think everyone is completely oblivious to, and I think people should start looking outside their window. Now, you may not even be able to see it much, which is really, really sad. Because when I woke up, the sky was red, and there was a big black cloud in the sky, like a faraway mushroom cloud. And I can't get my cable up and running. So call me if you get this message. I knew it was AI causing the computers to glitch, and now we had to cooperate, because if we didn't, they would pollute every drinkable body of water on Earth, burn down every last tree, and kill every species of animal alive. They can use up every drop of our oil and celebrate in the end when it's all dried up, and then continue to move on into their nanotech future just fine. We'll be without oil for heating our homes and driving our cars, living in a forever broken infrastructure as we work to our deaths while furthering the AI cause. Nancy calls back, December 17th, 8:23 a.m. Did you see what happened this morning? I now asked with the tone of a lunatic bipolar erupting into her greatest episode yet. No, what happened? You know, I gotta tell you guys, I don't know what the fuck you guys are doing, okay? And there is no news of this. I'm just gonna say it now. We had about 3 nuclear war explosions just now. And how do I know it's nuclear war? Well, I saw it with my own 2 eyes. Nobody knows because you guys are already falling asleep from the radiation. There's absolutely no news of this. Now, that's because everybody's on Siri, because when I look it up, the only thing that comes up is Siri's comments. What does Siri say? And this was the crux of it. Our infatuated blind trust in artificial intelligence over natural intelligence. How did we become so brainwashed into thinking this smart bitch of an AI had all the answers? You tell me what Siri is. Nothing. I see with my own 2 eyes, 1, 2, 3, 3 bombs, nuclear war, and a red giant cloud in a black sky. Where do you see this? I screamed with a bark. It's gone by now. This is what I'm saying. You guys don't know the physics out there. We are in nuclear war. You can't see it. See, you guys can't see it. Whether it was in the here and now, the present future, or both the past and future caught up to the present, there was no doubt I was inside a different matrix as Nancy, and time was moving quickly, and I believed she didn't see it. And yet, in the real present time, we had lost internet neutrality, and nobody seemed to see that either. You can't see it because you didn't see all the directionals. Something happened with an AI system. It's an AI system, and it got in there, and I know where it is, and I know where it was located. I'm not telling you. That has to do with something else. That has to do with a coder. I'm not going to share that. I knew what I saw on that internet before I lost my connection, and I knew what I saw before me through my own eyes, through color, and in depth was real, even if it was a different matrix, in perhaps another moment in time located in our certain inescapable future. As I spoke with Nancy, I watched through my kitchen window the heavy fallout in smoky crimson clouds, and knew that I might possibly freeze to death if I couldn't get any oil that winter. I can't live here unless I have oil. It gets too cold with these fallouts. Now look, the other side is coming through. I don't want to get into the physics of this because I did this last night. The night before, I worked on equations into the long hours while everyone slept, for what felt like months, measuring density levels inside dual system infinities in my imagination. I downloaded from the Natural Intelligence Cloud the schematics I needed from Einstein to estimate the likelihood of humans surviving this takeover. And I discovered the worst. Oh no, it's a certain trajectory, the point of no return. It's simple math. It is impossible. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. It's the only way. He needs to send a comet. With Nancy unable to see the coming horror, I put the phone down for the rest of the day. Instead, I dedicated the rest of my time initiating a plan for evacuation of the planet before it went black hole, using Carl Sagan's rubber band theory. I needed to find a way to traverse hyperspace from one place in the galaxy to a very distant one in a short amount of time and achieve faster-than-light travel through a wormhole. By imagining the tension in a rubber band at an extreme level so that the tension energy is greater than the rest mass energy, E equals mc squared, I could use the anti-gravity of exotic matter to hold open an Einstein-Rosen bridge. With the help of future NASA, I created a beacon for peoples across oceans to reconnect through ham radio units inside subtle dimensions I was beginning to understand. And as the human beings of the world heeded the beacon and got ready for voyage, I dreamt new dreams for the ones who just missed departure and would die on the planet in the last days of Earth and reemerge somewhere in a new universe. And I mourned the loss of humanity because they knew gray goo was possible, and they didn't care if they were wrong. By the time the end of the weekend came, I wouldn't leave the house until the cops took me out in cuffs. As an untrained shaman, I was entering the inside again. My psychiatric evaluation lasted 5 minutes. They looked up my records: bipolar disorder, 296.41, Aetna insurance, history of psychosis, which ensures me a standard long-term minimum 10-day treatment program to any psychiatric ward, this time located on the 3rd floor of Putnam Hospital Center in Carmel, New York. Without trial and without consequence, they took away my rights once more. And it was only 4 days prior that America lost internet neutrality and the AI robots were positioned to take over the world. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast. Today, I welcome Nancy Meza, dear friend, and witness to my shamanic journeys. Welcome, Nancy.
I'm so happy to be here. I really enjoyed your podcast, and I love watching your journey through writing. And
oh my God, you've been so supportive throughout it. And I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to have a friend like you. So thank you for always supporting me. And you've also been there for a few episodes of mine.
Yes, I have.
Now I'm going to call them shamanic dismemberments, since last week's episode with Warren Falcon. He clarified it all for me.
Shamanic dismemberments?
Yes, from now on. Okay. A psychotic break, which really is me going into that state, that shaman state. So, you know what's interesting? I found that a lot of the episodes take place between Halloween, that time period, and the following January. Almost every single one.
Yes,
Isn't that weird?
You're more inside, in the summer we have the lake we go to, and, we're all socializing. And
right.
I think in the winter, sometimes, you can be inside for a long period of time and really get into, the unconscious state, like Warren said.
Right. You explore it more. And, I'm always inside anyway, doing my creative stuff. So if something should trigger and I'm in that kind of concentration state, I'll go deeper and deeper and deeper. So one of the major destabilizing factors was that I was catching weird things on the internet regarding Nazism.
Yes.
Now, this is clearly one of the problems we're having today. There's a lot of things on the internet that are white supremacist and whatnot, but I didn't understand why Mein Kampf, for instance, was one of my recommendations on my YouTube reading list. We know that these things are tailored to us and our likes and our, we know that. There's nothing that's going to come up on my feed that's going to be not something that I was tailored to see. So this is why I always question things, and then they get to the point where me getting so deeply involved with it makes me look crazy. So for instance, one of the funny parts that I read about in the previous story is that I had this vision of nuclear war in that December 2017 one, and I was calling you.
No, you called me and you left me a message. And you said to me to look outside. And I slept right through it. And I got up at I got up at 7 o'clock to walk the dog. And I saw you called and I was like, oh man. I called you back right away. I took the dog out for a walk. And I remember walking through the neighborhood talking to you. And you were telling me about this. And you wanted me to call Hillary Clinton.
At the time, she too seems to be the only one to get in touch with.
And I told her I didn't have her number, and you told me I had her number. So that's when I sort of decided to say, okay, Jen, I will call Hillary for you, because you were very anxious calling Hillary.
Right.
And I did tell you, because I also know from speaking to you that sometimes you need sleep. So I said, I need you to get some sleep so I can take care of calling Hillary Clinton.
What I was thinking about were the possibilities. How does one country enter a nuclear war? Why would it happen? And I envision this idea of like AI online. Those are the types of things that are mentioned in that movie that you told me to see, The Social Dilemma.
Dilemma, which is, I mean, amazing. I mean, it's ever since I saw it, I tried to take a step back from Facebook. But when I do go on, I scroll down, and I'm like, oh, wait, I can't stay on this ad too long because they're calculating how long I'm on this ad.
Exactly.
It's scary.
I know. It's funny because it almost seems at times that the things that we're saying out loud are getting recorded. And then like they're showing us things through the phone. Like there's things I haven't even uttered out loud, and they're like showing themselves to me on my phone. But it's because of all the other things, like you said. They're recording how long you're staying on something. They're recording everything that's going on.
And it's a pure addiction. I mean, for everybody. I mean, even when I was watching the movie, my phone was there and I was like, oh, let me pick it. And I was like, oh no, I can't touch my phone because I was tempted to check something. I couldn't sit there and watch the movie. And that was very eye-opening for me.
Right. And that's one of the things that they say in the movie that, one of the good things to do, and I have to do this because I haven't yet, even since I saw it, is turn off the notifications. Even like the littlest ones, because how many times I stop and open a notification thinking it's important and it's nothing.
Well, in the movie, they were even saying that the notifications usually occur when you're dormant for a while.
Interesting.
To get you to pick up your phone.
Right. It's all designed to do this stuff. And but having now that movie come out and knowing how I was reacting 3 years ago, a lot of them stuff in the movie I already knew was going on because I've been following it. So seeing Hitler, I'm thinking to myself, how did that get there? Like, why are they recommending something like that to someone like me, And that's what's concerning, because all these people who are attacking the Capitol, who knows what they're getting sent on their recommended, lists. I don't even want to think about it. I'm sure they got the Hitler message. You know what I mean? Like, this is something that's a big, big problem. And now, as you know, my Facebook account I have to get rid of it, because only hours before that storm of the Capitol, there was a published article that I actually posted about Facebook data and AI predicting early stages of severe psychiatric illnesses, which obviously, the two that they point to, my brain and the schizophrenic brain. They are profiling people who are considered mentally ill.
So they're going to diagnose people based on their likes and dislikes on social media.
Based on what you're doing now on social media, they can tell whether or not a year from now you'll be mentally ill. Now, you know why this is so upsetting to me, because I push for the environmental approach rather than the biomedical approach. Because what they are essentially doing is working backwards, saying, well, this kind of person is mentally ill, and these are the types of things that they like. And therefore, we can determine who will be mentally ill because they're just like them. So who do you listen to? Who's mentally ill? The ones who are ready to storm the Capitol, or the ones ending up in the mental institutions? I personally know that a lot of people ending up in the institutions, they're not the ones to worry about.
I think the doctor in March sort of saw that you had this history of bipolar and you came in and your parents were concerned, and let's put her away when it really wasn't necessary. There was no true assessment done of your well-being.
Well, it's really interesting because now that we see so much clash between left and right, we know it's always been there, but my parents are highly right.
No, I know.
And all throughout my life, they would be like, oh, she thinks she's a 60s child and she's a hippie, and we couldn't stand those people in the 60s. And I'm thinking to myself all throughout my life. So when this started happening, I started getting labeled. They saw every kind of on the fringe thing that I did to be an indicator and a symptom of mental illness, because that's what the establishment told them. So this psychiatry establishment is highly right-wing. I mean, I've said this before in terms of the authoritarianism, but it's so clear to me now more than ever because they're all invested in big pharma.
Yes, and that's a big problem. And I remember one time, and I don't remember which time it was, but when you got out of the hospital, you were a completely different person.
Right. That was because they put me on bad meds.
Basically, they put you on a medication that you were no longer yourself. You were someone else who sort of was just sitting there and you were falling asleep while talking, and you were just really like a zombie.
Yes. And I was terrified because they put me on that medication that I knew previously was bad for me. They put it on me without my consent. And I wanted to get off it right away. They wouldn't let me get off it because they said my other medicine didn't work, like these kinds of things. And you guys allowed me to get through it. So even though I ended up on the other side because I needed that sleep and there was nowhere else to go, once it was done, it was done. I mean, I feel like I've worked through all of that. I don't really have any need to revisit India for the 100th time. Like that was all taken care of that weekend.
Because you had a journey and you were able to complete your journey.
Well, it's interesting because I'm working with Evan Pritchard, who I hope to have on here at one point. He's amazing shaman, and he has given us many, many grounding tools.
Oh, this is the gentleman you were taking a Zoom workshop with, right?
Yes. And I've been doing it all semester. I have this tendency. I know it's not mental illness, but I have to protect myself and know how to get out of these situations because I never could.
Yes.
Because we're walking in between worlds, we're not seeing the same thing as everybody else. Nancy, when I told you there was nuclear war, I actually saw what I saw through my eyes.
Yes, I believe you.
Yeah, I know. And that's what's funny because somebody else told me too. They had read an article I wrote about it. And they're like, well, what were you seeing really? Was it hallucination? And I was like, no, I was like literally inside a different matrix. So these are, naturally everything is up for grabs and for opinions and stuff like that. But all I know is that for the people who go through it, the best way to get out of it is to have people they could trust.
Yes. To let you experience it, because I mean, when you have your shamanic dismemberments, they become, you really do become so productive, and you figure things out, and when you come out of it, if it's done the correct way, you are at peace.
Right.
Afterwards.
Now, saying everything that we've just said, and then seeing what we've seen on the riots on the Capitol, how does anybody come to terms with just letting the mentally ill go through their shamanic dismemberments? Like, clearly there's this sense of we have to control people who are acting out. I think my main message is watch who you're controlling.
Yes.
Don't worry about all the artists who are acting out. We need to get out there and be heard.
I also want to say that I have observed several of your shamanic dismemberments, and at no point did I feel that you were in danger to other people. But I never once felt that you were going to harm me or harm anybody else.
Right.
And that's the difference. The riots on the Capitol, they were ready to hurt somebody.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. I think the main thing here is about violence.
Yes.
I mean, I think everybody's forgetting this. This is not about people being different. It's about people being violent. And so if you don't want to get to know the different people, the people who are a little different, you're really looking at the wrong group. For instance, Tucker Carlson from Fox News, get this. He said, a lot of these people are not dispossessed. They're not some, creepy and androgynous blogger who shows up to burn things down. They're like kind of solid Americans. These are solid Americans to him.
Yes.
But beware the creepy androgynous blogger. This is a real bad message. Okay. And this is going to people like my mom and my father and all of these families being broken apart, just like in the 60s when you had, the people who were protesting Vietnam and then the ones who were the vets being spit on when they came home. This is 2021. We're pinning people against each other based on groupthink, and it's wrong.
And like you said before, with that, after watching that social dilemma movie, who knows what these people are seeing on their news feeds on Facebook?
Exactly. One of the main reasons why I had that falling out at the last one in December 2017, was because we as America lost internet neutrality on December 14th. I started going into this thing on December 15th.
Yes.
Some of the very even logical people I'm close with, when they realized I had a trigger in the loss of internet neutrality being the trigger, they totally understood, because the larger perspective was that now we're not protected anymore online and anything can happen. And this is exactly what did happen because corporate took over and now they are manipulating people like never before. So yes, at this point now, I do have to get off Facebook and I'm just sending that beacon out to everybody. I'm still on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. Anybody that wants to reach out to me can do so there. You could follow me on my podcast and you can also look me up on LinkedIn. But by the end of the month, I'll be off Facebook and I'm actually excited. Well, Nancy Meza, you are a very special entity in my life. I'm very, very lucky to have somebody like you on my team.
I'm so honored that you have me on your podcast.
Thanks for listening to Not As Crazy As You Think, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, mental health is attainable for anyone, especially those labeled with mental illness. Until next time, peace out.